I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Welcome to our next episode of the Get Your New View podcast. I'm Carrie Peters, and today I've got a special guest with me, Cynthia Priebe, who's one of our senior trainers and consultants. And she's here to talk to us today specifically about workflow approvals and notifications. Cynthia, why do companies put off workflow and notifications until phase 2?
Because they already have a process in place. And it happens to be a folder with paper in it or running between desks. I think it's one of those things that it's would be nice, they think.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what workflow approvals and notifications do, can you just walk us through about what companies don't know about this feature in the first place?
Sure. So the best way I can do that is to illustrate it with an example. So you have a purchase that needs to be made. You are currently jotting down a note in an email that sending it off to whoever gets to approve purchases over a certain amount, or maybe it's for raw materials for production or whatever it might be. You send off that email to someone and they say, yeah, go ahead and buy 50,000 of them because I think Fred needs some of those too. The email comes back, you put the purchase order in, you send it off to the vendor. That's your approval process, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? In Business Central, what we can do is we can actually create the purchase order. We create that purchase order and we can then, before we send it off to the vendor, send it off to someone internally, notify them that you intend to make this purchase. The nice thing about it is they have one place to look. It's not an email that's in a different format from whoever is sending it to you. It's not lost with all of your other emails. It always comes to you in the same form, and you can go look at that purchase order because you're the person who needs to approve that. You can see exactly what it's for, exactly who it's from, and you can say, yep, that's good. And now that person can move along. It's been approved, and they send it off to the vendor. Oh my gosh, is that so much more effective?
Do you have phase 2 projects that have been on your to-do list for way too long? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Do you suspect that there just has to be a better way, but you don't know what that is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started. Yeah, absolutely. Is it difficult for them to put approvals and notifications into place after go live?
It is not difficult at all to put it into place after go live. In fact, I have to admit, I have a tendency to push something like that when I was doing implementations, because again, they already had a process in place and it worked. And there were other things that we had to affect or modify their current processes for because we couldn't mimic that same exact process in Business Central. So it has a tendency to go to phase 2, at least it did for me too. However, I think the problem is it ends up becoming part of phase 2, never be to be done, as compared to phase 2.
Yeah. Do you have a story for us about a customer that you've done this for?
Yeah, actually, I do. This was a situation where their process was to take a purchase request, put all kinds of documentation, including some Excel spreadsheets and stuff, into a folder, take it over to the person that needed to approve that purchase. Go ahead, that person would take and put a post-it note on top of the folder and with a big check mark on it, because of course you don't want check marks on the folder because you could take that check mark off and reuse the folder.
Yep.
Put it back on the person's desk in their inbox. That person then would take that information and put it into a purchase order in Business Central. And then that purchase order would go off to the vendor, and the vendor would send back any changes. That purchase order got printed out because now there were changes, put back into the folder with the post-it note off of it because it's not checked anymore, given back to that other person, and then they put a new post-it note with a check mark on it. I did suggest they just put the check mark on the inside and then they could keep reusing it, but I thought that was kind of a funny interim step. But put the check mark back on the folder, go back to the desk so then that they could go ahead and release that purchase order and send that final confirmation off to the vendor. Then when they got the stuff, they got the stuff. Then when it came time to pay it, they also had to take that same folder. They actually printed out the check, put the check in that folder, and gave it back to the person for them to go ahead and agree that they had to do the check.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see what a mess it was. So here's what ended up happening. We put approvals in on the purchase order side. We convinced them that they didn't need to reapprove the payment. They just needed to approve that it would be paid. So we put workflows and approvals in for the purchase orders, and we eliminated the folder going back and forth. And by the way, the Excel spreadsheet, we determined that was a legacy thing and nobody was looking at it anyway. And somebody was spending about half an hour to an hour for every purchase order. And that was never, and by the way, they were printing out the spreadsheet. Don't forget. Okay. So very quickly, we took that process, eliminated the folder, and we recommended using the vendor prepayment journal on the payment side just to approve the fact that that amount of money was going to be sent out. And by the way, we didn't print it out. We used a notification to notify that the journal was ready to be reviewed, and they went and they ran that report. So it was amazing the difference it made. And my understanding was that person that was always shuffling those folders, last I heard, she was now negotiating better pricing with vendors instead of, and putting vendor prices in the system, by the way, instead of the whole process she was doing before.
Yeah, amazing. And there's so many stories like that with workflow approvals and notifications. There's a lot of potential there that I really wish that companies could take advantage of. So real quickly, Cynthia, how does NewView make it easy to implement this type of project?
It's looking at your process that you have now, pointing out the redundancies and the problems and how much it's really costing you, that many times there are legacy things that are left in place, like the Excel spreadsheet that wasn't being used anymore, and interpreting that into something that is paperless. And by the way, this was all done prior to COVID, and OMG, what a different, I can't even imagine what they would have been going through because they were working remotely during COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. If you're somebody who's listening to our stories today about workflows and notifications, and this is something you're interested in doing, contact us. It's super easy. Just send an email to info@getyournewview.com, and we'll set up a quick 30-minute call to talk about how you can get phase 2 projects like this done at your company. Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Do you suspect that there just has to be a better way, but you don't know what that is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.